My father always said his business would be his legacy. He never said who it would belong to. Growing up, my older sister Sophia and I spent more time in my dad's small manufacturing office than we did at the mall, or sleepovers, or school events. While other kids hung out after class, we were stuffing envelopes, sweeping the tiny warehouse, or riding around in my dad's squeaky pickup truck as he delivered orders to customers himself. The business was called Harper Steelworks, a custom metal fabrication shop on the edge of town. It didn't look like much from the outside, just a plain gray building with a faded sign, but inside, it was the heartbeat of our family. Sparks flew from welding torches, machines hummed, and the smell of oil and metal clung to the air like a second skin. My dad, Robert Harper, was always there. My mom, Elaine, handled the books from a tiny office up front. Sophia and I grew up in that chaos. You'd think the business would be ours, together. You'd be wrong. Because one ordinary Tuesday afternoon, Dad called a family meeting and changed everything. And later, when everything came crashing down, when my phone rang and his name lit up the screen, I knew before answering. This time, he needed me. Who's the responsible one? I'm Emma Harper, the younger daughter. 2 years behind Sophia, 4 inches shorter, and apparently, several miles behind in our parents' eyes. Sophia was the golden child, the kind of daughter who made teachers smile and relatives brag. All A's, student council, debate team, the one who remembered birthdays and made color-coded lists. I was the creative one which, in my family, was just another word for unpredictable. I liked books and design, art and marketing. I was the kid who doodled logos instead of doing math, who wrote stories in the margins of my notebooks. Our roles were assigned early. Sophia, future CEO, smart, reliable. Emma, sweet, emotional, good with ideas but not practical. Dad never meant to say it out loud. But he did. Many times. You two are like the two sides of a good business, he'd say, chuckling. Sophia's the brains. Emma's the heart. It took me years to realize that in his mind, only one of those deserved ownership. The day he chose her. On that Tuesday, Dad called us into the office. The same office where he used to keep snacks in the bottom drawer, where Sophia and I would sit on the floor and color while he worked. Now the desk was covered in papers, a legal pad, and a polished wooden box. Mom sat in a chair against the wall, hands clasped tightly in her lap. Her expression made my stomach twist. Girls, Dad began, clearing his throat, I brought you here because it's time to talk about the future of Harper Steelworks. Sophia straightened, and I could practically see the hope glowing off her. I felt it too. Nervous and shaky, but there. Dad continued, I'm not getting any younger. The business is doing well, better than we expected. We have a solid client list, long-term contracts, good people. But we need a plan. A succession plan. He looked at both of us. You are both so important to this place, he said. But we need a clear structure. One leader. I glanced at Mom. Her eyes met mine for a half second, full of something like regret. Dad reached for the wooden box and opened it. Inside was a single engraved brass key. The key to the office. The main office. His office. He picked it up, turned it between his fingers, then looked straight at Sophia. Sweetheart, he said softly, I want you to be the new majority owner and CEO of Harper Steelworks. The air left my lungs like someone had punched me. My vision went slightly blurry around the edges. I heard Sophia whisper, Dad, are you serious? As he smiled proudly. Yes, he said, voice gruff with emotion. You've been working side by side with me for years. You know every contract, every supplier, every client. You went to business school, you understand budgeting, operations, growth strategy. You're ready. He pressed the key into her palm and closed her fingers around it. In the papers I've signed with the attorney, he added, you have 60% ownership. Your mother keeps 20%. And Emma. He turned to me. I forced my face into something that looked like interest instead of heartbreak. Emma, he said, you'll receive 20% of the business as a minority shareholder. My chest tightened. 20%. No say. No control. Just a slice. A courtesy. That means you'll always have a stake in the company, he went on, as if he were handing me a gift. Dividends, profit sharing, stability. Your sister will run the day-to-day, but you'll be taken care of too. I swallowed hard. Sophia turned toward me with wide, guilty eyes. I didn't know, she stammered. I swear, I didn't know he'd do this. I opened my mouth, closed it, and somehow managed to smile. Congratulations, I said, and even my own ears couldn't tell if I meant it. Mom stood abruptly and left the office, one hand pressed to her forehead. Dad mistook my silence for agreement. This is what's best for the business, he said gently. You're talented, Emma, no question. But you never liked the numbers. You changed majors in college twice. You talk about wanting to travel, write, do design. This way, you get the freedom you always wanted, and Sophia takes on the responsibility. It's what makes sense. Right. Freedom. That's what he was calling it. I stared at the key in Sophia's hand. It gleamed. Like something I was never going to hold. Over the next year, things changed. On the surface, not much was different, same building, same machines, same people. But underneath, the balance shifted. People didn't say ask your dad anymore. They said, ask Sophia. Her name was on every email. She was copy on every decision. Her signature went under new contracts. At first, she tried to make it gentle. She'd say things like, can you take over the social media completely? You're so much better at communication than I am. Can you redesign our brochures? They're outdated. You're great with visuals. I did all of it. Redesigned the brand. Set up a modern website. Created an online presence. Ran campaigns that brought in new customers. But whenever Dad praised the company's growth, his eyes always slid to Sophia. You're really taking it to the next level, he'd say to her. He'd ruffle my hair like I was still 16. You too, Em. You do a great job helping your sister. Helping. Not leading, not building, not owning. Just helping. One afternoon, I overheard something that broke the last little bit of my naive hope. I was in the hallway near the conference room, picking up printed flyers. The door was slightly open. I heard Dad's voice. She's adjusting, I think, he was saying. Sophia replied, I feel bad. Emma works really hard. She could have been part of this more. Dad sighed. She's not cut out for the pressure, he said. She's too sensitive. I love her, but she's not a boss. There it was. Not a boss. I swallowed hard, my throat burning. I backed away on quiet feet, holding the papers like they weighed 100 pounds. That night, I went home, opened my laptop, and applied for a remote marketing job with a company 3 states away. 2 weeks later, I got it. I'm leaving the company, I told them at dinner. Mom's fork froze halfway to her mouth. Sophia's eyes widened. Dad frowned. What do you mean, you're leaving? He asked. I got a job offer, I said quietly. It's remote. I'll be doing creative marketing work. I think it's time I do my own thing. Dad set his fork down. You already have a place in this business, he said. You don't need to go chasing something uncertain. Dad, I said, trying to sound calm, I don't want to just help out here forever. I want to build something that's mine. You own 20% of this company, he pointed out. That's not nothing, Emma. People would kill for that. I looked at him steadily. Yes, I said, I own 20%. But I control 0%. Mom closed her eyes briefly, pain flickering across her face. Sophia spoke up carefully. Emma, if this is about the succession stuff, I swear, I never meant. This isn't your fault, I cut in, and I meant it. You deserve the position. You're good at it. This is about me not wanting to spend my life as the helper in a place where decisions are made over my head. Dad's jaw tightened. You're being dramatic, he said. This is family, not some corporate hierarchy lined up against you. We take care of each other here. I stared at him. Do we? I asked quietly. The silence that followed said more than any argument could. I left Harper Steelworks 2 weeks later. The next 3 years were messy and miraculous at the same time. I moved into a small apartment across town. It wasn't much, but the freedom tasted sweet. Like the first breath after being underwater too long. I threw myself into my marketing job. It wasn't glamorous, but I loved it. I learned how to write copy that made people buy things, design ads that clicked, manage campaigns that went viral in small, satisfying ways. On the side, I started taking on freelance work. Social media management. Branding. Web design. Mostly for small local businesses that couldn't afford big agencies. I built a portfolio. I built confidence. I built a name. Every Christmas, every birthday, every family gathering, Dad would bring up Harper Steelworks. He'd talk about new contracts, expansion plans, new equipment. He never once said, we couldn't have done it without your early work on our branding, or those customers still come in because of the campaigns you started. He didn't mean to erase my contribution. He just didn't see it. Sophia tried. She'd text me updates, ask for advice, sometimes pay me as a consultant on small projects. But I kept a healthy distance. I wasn't ready to walk back into that building and breathe in the smell of hot metal and lost dreams. I told myself I was over it. I wasn't. Not completely. Because then came the phone call that changed everything. The call. It was a rainy Tuesday afternoon. I was sitting at my tiny kitchen table with my laptop open, building a campaign for a local bakery. My phone buzzed. Dad flashed on the screen. I hesitated. We weren't fighting, exactly, but we weren't close either. Our conversations had become short, polite updates. I answered anyway. Hey, Dad, I said. Everything okay? His voice came through thin and exhausted. Emma, he said. Can you come down to the office? My stomach dropped. What's wrong? I asked. He paused. His exhale sounded like defeat. It's complicated, he said. But I really need to see you. My heart started pounding. Is everyone okay? Is Mom okay? Sophia? Just come, he said. Please. As soon as you can. The please scared me. Dad wasn't a please kind of man. I'll be there in 20 minutes, I said. The first thing I noticed when I pulled into the parking lot of Harper Steelworks was the number of empty spaces. There used to be trucks, vans, staff cars lined up in uneven rows. Now, there were just a few lonely vehicles and a forklift parked at a weird angle. The sign out front looked more faded than ever. Inside, the atmosphere was different too. Quieter. Heavier. The metallic clanging was sporadic instead of constant. I walked through the corridor and into the main office. Mom sat at her desk, adding numbers into a spreadsheet. Her face lit up when she saw me, then quickly crumpled. "Emma," she said, standing to hug me. "I'm so glad you're here." "What's going on?" I asked. She pulled back and lowered her voice. "Things have been hard," she said. "Your dad will explain. He's in his office with Sophia." Her eyes were red, like she'd been crying. Fear twisted in my gut. I knocked and walked into Dad's office. He was sitting behind the desk, but he looked nothing like the man I remembered as unshakable. His shoulders were slumped. His hair had more gray in it. Papers were scattered across the desk in chaotic piles. Sophia stood by the window, arms crossed, staring at nothing. When she saw me, her eyes filled with tears. She whispered. "I'm so sorry we had to drag you back into this." Alarm bells went off in my head. Back into what? I asked. Dad gestured to the chair opposite him. "Sit," he said, voice strained. I sat. He slid a folder across the desk. I opened it. Inside were financial statements, contracts, and a red-stamped notice I instantly recognized even though I'd never seen one in person. Final demand, outstanding balance. My pulse spiked. "Dad," I said slowly, "what is this?" He rubbed a hand over his face. "The business is in trouble," he said. "Serious trouble." "How serious?" I whispered. "Unless something changes," he said, "we could lose Harper Steelworks within 3 months." The mistake. As the rain tapped against the window, Dad laid everything out on the table. It started with growth. After I left, Harper Steelworks landed several big contracts. Large orders from construction firms and manufacturers. They needed more equipment, more workers, more space. Sophia, wanting to prove herself, pushed for expansion. "Dad backed me," she said quietly, guilt in her eyes. "I thought, if we scaled up, we could become one of the top suppliers in the region. I didn't want to just keep things small forever." So they took loans. They leased new machines. They hired more staff. They extended credit lines to big clients. For a while, it worked. Revenue climbed. They were busier than ever. Then one of their largest clients, a construction company, hit a financial wall and filed for bankruptcy. They owed Harper Steelworks a lot of money. Money that never came. With that unpaid invoice, the business suddenly had a huge hole in its cash flow. Loan payments didn't care. Equipment leases didn't care. Payroll didn't care. Worse, a new competitor moved into town. Bigger, flashier, with aggressive pricing and a shiny showroom. They started undercutting Harper Steelworks on bids. Some long-term customers left. Others negotiated lower prices. Margins shrank. And then, as if the universe wanted to twist the knife, one of the new machines broke down, twice, and repairs weren't cheap. It was a series of dominoes. One wrong push, and here they were. over-leveraged, underpaid, and dangerously close to default. I made mistakes, Sophia said, voice cracking. I was too aggressive. I thought I could handle it. I thought I needed to prove I deserved this. Dad shook his head. It's not all on you, he said. I signed off on every decision. I was excited about growing too. I didn't see the risks clearly enough. I stared at the numbers, flipping through paper after paper. So, what now? I asked. Dad looked at me with an expression I had never seen on his face. Helplessness. We need help, he said simply. We need someone who understands marketing, positioning, customers. Someone who knows how to make people pay attention again. Someone who knows our story and knows how to sell it. He paused. We need you, Emma. The words hung in the air like a challenge. The offer. Part of me wanted to laugh. Not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. The man who believed I wasn't a boss was now looking at me like I was the last lifeline for his drowning company. I don't understand, I said slowly. What exactly are you asking me to do? Sophia stepped closer. We've cut costs as much as we can without gutting the place, she said. We've renegotiated some loan terms, talked to the bank, trimmed staff hours, everything. But unless we increase revenue fast and rebuild our client base, it's not enough. She swallowed hard. We need a rebrand, she said. A new campaign. A new image. Something that will remind people why they trusted us in the first place and show them we're worth working with. Dad cleared his throat. I know we didn't do right by you, he said gruffly. I know giving Sophia majority control and leaving you with a silent stake hurt you. But this business, it's still your family's. You helped build it. You know it. And you're damn good at what you do. We've seen your work online. People talk about the campaigns you've run. He leaned forward. I'm asking you to come back for 6 months. Consult, lead the marketing, help us get out of this hole. I'll compensate you fairly. We'll sign a contract. No vague promises this time. I sat back, arms crossed. And what happens after 6 months? I asked. I go back to being the ghost shareholder no one listens to? He hesitated. Sophia looked at him, then at me. This is your chance, she said softly. Negotiate. Don't do this out of pity. If you help us, you should get something real. For the first time, I saw her not as the golden child who took my place, but as a woman carrying a weight too heavy for one person. I looked at Dad. Okay, I said. Here's my condition. Dad braced like he was heading into a boxing match. I'll help, I said. I'll come back as Chief Brand and Strategy Officer for 6 months minimum. Full authority over marketing, positioning, communication, and client outreach. I'm not asking for control over operations or finances, but when it comes to how this company presents itself and who it targets, my word carries real weight. He nodded slowly. That seems reasonable, he said. That's not all, I added. I slid the ownership papers back toward him. I want my stake increased, I said. If I'm going to help save this ship, I'm not doing it with 20% and no say. I want 30% ownership and a seat on the board with equal voting rights to Sophia. Sophia's brows shot up. 30%? Dad repeated, stunned. Yes, I said calmly. That would make the structure, 50% Sophia, 30% me, 20% Mom. I'm not asking to be majority owner. This isn't a coup. But I want my share to match the level of responsibility you're now asking me to take. He rubbed his temples. That's a big ask, he muttered. I'd have to sign over part of my retained shares. It's complicated. What's more complicated? I asked softly. Adjusting percentages now, or closing the doors in 3 months? The room went quiet. Mom stepped in then, having clearly been listening from the doorway. Robert, she said, voice firm, she's right. We didn't treat her like an owner before. If she's willing to come back and fight for this place, we need to treat her as one now. Dad looked at her, conflict warring in his eyes. Then he sighed. You drive a hard bargain, Emma, he said. But you're my daughter. And you're right, we made you feel small when you were anything but. He straightened. You'll get your 30%, he said. We'll get the paperwork started with the lawyer. Effective the moment you sign your consulting agreement. Something unclenched in my chest. For the record, I said quietly, I'm not doing this to punish you. I'm doing it because I refuse to keep being the helper in my own family's story. Dad nodded, a hint of pride breaking through the stress. Maybe I was wrong, he murmured. Maybe you are a boss after all. I started the following Monday. Our first step was brutal honesty. I gathered the remaining staff in the break room, machine operators, welders, office assistants, everyone. They looked worried, fidgety. They'd heard rumors. I stood in front of them and said, we're in trouble. But we're not dead. And if we're going down, we're going to go down fighting with a clear message, a strong reputation, and a story worth believing in. Then I laid out the plan. 1. Rebrand, but keep the heart. We updated the logo, colors, and website, but not in some flashy, out-of-character way. I kept the history in mind. Harper Steelworks had been around for decades. That was our strength. Reliability. Real people. Not a faceless corporate giant. Our new tagline became, built on steel. Forged by family. We leaned into that. Photos of real workers, not stock models. Stories about long-term clients who trusted us. Behind-the-scenes videos of welders at work, sparks flying, with voiceovers about craftsmanship and commitment. 2. Tell the truth about our size. Instead of pretending to be big, we sold ourselves as the right size. Big enough to handle major jobs. Small enough to care about each one. I created campaigns around personal service and flexibility, things our shiny new competitor didn't have. 3. Target forgotten clients. While Sophia pored over the accounts, I went through old client lists. We reached out to smaller contractors and local businesses that had been overshadowed when our attention shifted to the big fish. We sent personalized messages. We're still here. We remember your first order. We'd love to work with you again. We offered limited-time loyalty discounts to former clients and referrals. 4. Turn our struggle into connection. I made a bold move. On our website and social media, I posted a video featuring Dad and Sophia talking about the history of Harper Steelworks, the challenges of the past year, and our determination to keep going. Not a sob story. A human story. People responded. Messages poured in. My dad used to buy parts from you guys. Glad you're still around. Love seeing family businesses fight to stay alive. Sending an order your way. Your honesty means a lot. I wish more companies were like this. We weren't just a factory. We were a family trying to survive. And Americans love an underdog. It wasn't instant. The first month was rough. The second was slightly better. By the third month, though, something shifted. We landed a contract with a mid-sized agricultural equipment company impressed by our transparency and custom capabilities. They'd been burned by the flashy competitors' poor quality and were looking for reliability again. Our old clients started returning. One of them, a grizzled contractor named Mike, came by the office and clapped me on the back. "Nice work with the new website and videos," he said. "You make this place look like what it is, real." Then he turned to Dad. "You should have put her in charge of something a long time ago," he added with a grin. Dad smiled, a little ruefully. "Don't I know it," he said. "We weren't rich. We weren't fully safe. But the numbers were improving." Mom's spreadsheets turned from seas of red to lines of cautious black. The bank, seeing our progress, relaxed its grip a little. Extended a few deadlines. The air in the building began to feel lighter. The machines hummed more often. People joked again at lunch. And through it all, something else changed. Dad started asking me questions. Real questions. "Do you think this pitch works, Em? Should we film this process for the website? Is this messaging clear enough?" He listened to my answers. He implemented them. And slowly, the respect I'd wanted my whole life started showing up in small, consistent ways. One night, after a long day, Sophia and I sat on the office steps, watching the sunset over the parking lot. "I was jealous of you, you know," she said suddenly. I snorted. "Of what?" I asked. "My cozy 20% with no control? My dramatic exit?" She smiled faintly. "Of your courage," she said. "You left. You built something of your own." I stayed and spent 3 years trying to prove I deserved something Dad had already decided was mine. And then when it all went wrong, I blamed myself so much I could barely breathe. I looked at her. "I envied you," I admitted. "You had the key. The title. The trust. The legacy. I felt like I was always the second choice." She nodded slowly. "Dad loves you," she said. "He just put you in a box labeled creative kid and thought he was protecting you from stress. He didn't realize he was holding you back." "Well," I said, leaning my head on her shoulder for the first time in years, "I guess this is our story now. Not just his." She smiled. "Our revenge," she said softly, "is making this place better than it's ever been, and doing it together." I liked that. Not revenge like destruction. Revenge like reclaiming what should have been ours all along. 6 months later, we held a small celebration in the warehouse. There were no balloons or confetti, just pizza boxes on workbenches and plastic cups filled with soda. But there was laughter. And relief. We had crossed a major milestone. The bank had formally withdrawn the final demand notice. We were officially in the clear. Not rich. Not invincible. But stable. I stood with a slice of greasy pizza in hand as Dad cleared his throat to get everyone's attention. All right," he said, smiling awkwardly. "I'm not much for speeches, but tonight deserves one." Everyone quieted. He looked at the workers, then at us, me, Mom, and Sophia standing together near the welding station. "A year ago," he began, "this place was on the edge of collapse. Partly because of circumstances, partly because of bad decisions, mine included. I thought I knew everything after decades in this business. I thought I knew what leadership looked like, what strength looked like." He glanced at me. I thought it looked like being the loudest voice in the room. There were a few quiet chuckles. But I was wrong, he continued. Strength looks like admitting you don't have all the answers. It looks like asking for help from the very person you once underestimated. He pointed at me. This company is still standing because my daughters turned it around, he said. Sophia with operations, Emma with branding and strategy. Together, they did what I couldn't do alone. And for a long time, I didn't see Emma as a leader. I saw her as the creative kid, heart but no head. He swallowed hard. I was wrong, he said simply. And I want everyone here to know it. The entire room was silent. I felt my eyes sting. He turned fully toward me. Emma, he said, I'm sorry. For not recognizing your power sooner. For making you feel like a helper in your own family's story. You earned your place here years ago. I'm just finally catching up. My voice trembled as I answered. Thank you, I said. For saying that. He smiled. And since we're being honest, he added, I might as well tell everyone the last part of the surprise. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small envelope. In addition to the 30% ownership we already transferred, he said, I've signed one more document. Effective at the end of this fiscal year, I'll be fully retiring. The remaining 20% of my shares will be divided between my daughters. He held up 2 keys. Sophia gasped. My jaw dropped. That will leave the company, he said, in the hands of 2 equal co-owners who saved it when it mattered most. He handed 1 key to Sophia. Then he handed the second key to me. The same kind of key he'd given only her years ago. This time, we both held one. After the celebration, after the workers went home and the lights dimmed, Dad and I stood alone in the quiet office. Do you regret calling me that day? I asked. He chuckled softly. Only that I didn't call you sooner, he said. I laughed, then sobered. You know, I said, for a long time I thought my revenge would be building a life so incredible away from this business that you'd regret not trusting me. He tilted his head. And now? He asked. Now, I said, turning the key over in my hand, I think the best kind of revenge is this, standing in the very place where I once felt small, and realizing that I'm not small at all. That I belong here. That this isn't just your legacy anymore. It's ours. He nodded, eyes shining. You're right, he said. This company was my legacy. But you, both of you, are my redemption. I smiled, tears slipping down my cheeks. You know people online love a good revenge story, I said. They like seeing the overlooked one come back stronger than anyone expected. He raised a brow. So, what's the headline? He asked. I thought for a moment, then grinned. Dad gave my sister the business. Then he called me when it was falling apart. He didn't expect I'd save it and end up owning half of it. Dad laughed. Sounds about right, he said. We walked out onto the shop floor, where the machine stood silent for the night, metal gleaming under the dim lights. I slid the key into my pocket. This time, I wasn't the helper. I wasn't the forgotten daughter. I was co-owner of Harper Steelworks. The business that once rejected me had become the stage for my greatest comeback. And as for revenge? I didn't need to destroy anything. All I had to do was take my place at the table. And build something so strong that no one would ever question my right to be there again.